Welcome everybody to Trail Talk. This is leg number 8, and this is leaving Standing Bear Farm and heading towards Hot Springs, North Carolina. And I'm going to show you one of the reasons I really liked hiking in North Carolina, just as a quick overview. Water, water camping, water views, water. Look at this. Water. Just extra camping, just water. Look at this, just water. And then the next page here is hot springs. So there's plenty of water available to drink, so you can actually not have to carry so much and get some of that weight down out of the pack. Okay, coming out of Standing Bear Farms, you head down the road. The AT goes up southbound to the right. You're going to keep going down the road a little bit further, and then there'll be a mark on a big rock, and you'll start a climb. And once again, if you've just gone in to grab a package and then heading back up, this is a great place to camp. Once again, plenty of water, and we're going to start a climb. Going to keep climbing and up to Snowbird. Now, what's really cool, there's an FAA tower up here. Everybody talks about it being some spaceship, some alien thing, and it's called a Vortac. And one of my videos from 2016, I actually go through a pretty good explanation what this is. But essentially, it's a Vortac sends out a signal on each of the cardinal headings, 360 degrees. And there's an instrument in the airplane that picks this up, and so it can tell the bearing from that, and then the TACAM part of that gives you a distance. Okay, so a Vortac, and it is basically used to create a highway map in the sky for airplanes, so they're all flying the same direction, and then they can be separated by altitude, and nobody runs into each other. So it's a way to navigate for the airlines. Okay. Anyway, so it's not some alien thing. It's a Vortac. All right. Now that's coming down here to this is a not too bad of a descent if I remember right. And we left a little bit later in the day, so we only did about a 7 mile that day. Okay, into Groundhog Creek, and it was supposed to be still a pretty cold night. Remember, we had stayed 2 nights here at Standing Bear Farms because of the height, the temperatures are going to be up here, and so we decided after 2 nights we headed out, but it still got down pretty cold this night. And this is one of the last photographs I actually have of Hamfist and Rabbit. These are 2 guys that I hiked a lot with, probably from about just after Neil's Gap for a while. Until we got into Damascus, and then I didn't see him again. But let me show you a picture of these guys, and we're not in the shelter, but there's a little camping area kind of away from the shelter, and let you see what that looks like. Okay, let's see. And then coming out, once again, had a pretty good climb coming up. If I remember right, this wasn't too bad, but this is a day that as I got up and I made contact with my wife, I found out her brother had died. So this was a tough day for her, and so I spent a lot of time this day actually doing a dedicatory video called Walking with Mark. It's about a 10-part series where I kind of dedicated it to Mark. It's kind of on the personal side. I kind of did it for the family. Once again, at this point in time, I was still doing YouTube videos more for my family than I was for any kind of an audience. But if you want to know who I am and how I feel about life and my maker and things like that, that's a series to go watch if you want to know more about the spiritual side of me, I guess. So there was a lot of thinking as I was heading up towards Max Patch, and once again, this Max Patch, it says it's a homophone, okay, for Max Patch. All right, and a lot of all these places they go up and they would clear off these balds for the cattle, and they could stay up there all summer and then go up and get them and bring them down for the winter. There's a lot of little summits. I thought any minute now I'm going to break out on a match patch, and then it was back down in the woods again. So it took a little while to actually get up here to the summit. And a lot of hikers up there that day. If I remember, there's actually a parking lot. So there were a lot of people up there that day. So, but this is a really pretty vistas up there. And I think I've got a picture of me up there. I'll throw in. Nothing else. You can see how long my hair is starting to get here. Okay, so after max patch, if I remember right, it was mid-afternoon we got there. And I really didn't want to stop at this Roaring Fork shelter. I wanted to kind of get down here to the Walton Mountain shelter, so it was a pretty good hike. Rabbit and Hamfist had gotten pretty far ahead of me because I had been doing a lot of pensive hiking, I would call it, as I was making my videos for the family, talking about him. And it, and I kind of had looked at the profile, and as you can see, it's just, I mean, it's pretty much descending here. It's harder on the knees to do this kind of stuff, but it's a little bit harder. It's easier on the heart and the stamina and the energy drain. So I was able to go ahead and make my way in this last climb. It's starting to get dark. I got here right literally at sunset. This was probably one of the most miserable nights I spent on the trail because of the wind. The wind was just howling. It was really strong. This is when I learned a lot of what not to do, trying to set up a tent in the wind. I would have loved to have gotten in the shelter, but then I got to the shelter. It was facing into the wind, and people had taken a picnic table and had stood it on its end to try and block the wind in the shelter. I struggled for quite a while trying to get my tent up, was very frustrated, went down the hill to get my water, only to find out that if I had looked at this enough, I would have realized that there was a campsite in the field beyond the water. So if I had gone down to the water, I saw all these campsites down there in this field, and it was a protected area. The wind wasn't howling, and I would have been much better off to set my tent up down there. I could have had to go down there to get water anyway. I may have been able to sleep that night because the whole night was just miserable till early morning with this wind just blowing really, really hard. All right, and then the next day, once again, just kind of because we were right up on the summit of this mountain, down again and then back up to Bluff Mountain. And let me throw in a picture. I believe this is a vista from Bluff Mountain. It could be Max Patch, but I think it's a vista from Bluff Mountain. Okay, and then of course now we're starting a huge descent, a couple of 1,000 feet as we're coming down, and then we got relatively flat and trying to get into this Deer Park Mountain shelter. And I went to the shelter. Hamfist, well, Rabbit so fast he got on the way into Hot Springs, and Hamfist ended up stopping where the water was to camp, where there were some campsites, 0.2 east. Okay, or I guess they were west. I was east and then of the trail, and then the water was kind of on the other side of the AT, on the west side of the AT, and he went down by where the water was to camp. There had been some trail magic at the shelter that night, some beer and Cokes, and by the time I got there was one Coke for me and about 4 beers for the other German that was there, and hopefully Hamfist, but he never showed up there. So he ended up not getting a beer. I was hoping that he would be able to have one, but it didn't work out that way. The next morning, I thought maybe he'd already gone into, because I didn't see him, I thought maybe he'd gone into Hot Springs. And anyway, this night it did rain, and we woke up in the rain. And I think I spent the night in the shelter with Yukon and Shadow. I think that was her name. She was Yukon Shadow, but the guy looked just like Yukon Cornelius. Anyway, that's the first time I met them. And then it was just literally a walk in the rain, cold rain, all the way down into, and I think Hot Springs is just right on the other side here. Yep, kind of come right down into Hot Springs. Now, if I remember right, there wasn't really a view coming down into Hot Springs where you could take a photograph, but Hot Springs, literally, it's you come into the main road in town, and that's the AT. You cross the bridge, and walk along the river for a while, and then you head back up. And I think I'm gonna throw a picture in that I took from up here, looking back down at Hot Springs. You can see that it's actually a relatively small town. Okay, places to stay and resupply in Hot Springs. This is a cool little trail town. Really liked it a lot. There was a great bar with great burgers right across from Bluff Mountain Outfitters. That is a great place to do a resupply. Since Outdoor 76, this is your first spot to actually replace some footwear if you need to. If you're using trail runners, 273 miles in, it's a pretty good time to assess those, because your next opportunity is going to be probably Mount Rogers in Damascus. So if it's starting to fall apart, it's a good place to pick up a new set of footwear, liner socks, things like that. Change any kind of gear out. So it's really good outfitter there in town. Really nice. You can do a little bit of resupply there if you want. There's also a Dollar General and I think a little grocery store there too. I stayed at Elmer's Sunnybank Inn. Elmer's is it's kind of like a bed and breakfast in a way. You can just stay there. A lot of times you'll share a room with somebody. They do, it's vegetarian meals, so you can buy the dinner, which I did, and I really liked it. It was, like I said, it was vegetarian, but at this point in time in the trail, I am craving a lot of vegetables and those little phytonutrients that come with the vegetables. So I went ahead and did the vegetarian. Then breakfast, sometimes they do eggs or omelets. We just had some sort of a pancake and some fruit, and I don't know what was in the pancakes, but I I spent most of that next day till noon hiking up the trail, tooting and rooting. So anyway, I know too much information on that one, but anyway, the room that I stayed in, which was room number 4, was also the room that Earl Schaefer stayed in, both when he did his through hike the first time and when he came back around the second time when he was, 80? He stayed there in room 4. So there's a little plaque on the wall. So if you want to do something historic and something cool, go to Elmer's to stay there and ask for room 4 so you can stay in the same room that Earl Schaefer stayed in. Now, let's say funds are a little tight and you're not quite sure. You don't really want to spend the money in Hot Springs to stay, but you do want to stay. You may even want to do a 0 there. Well, when you come out of town, you cross the bridge, you're going to walk along the river here before you start up. There is a lot of camping spots that are just free camping along here. So there's places to go camp, and then you can walk back in. The place where you're going to do your laundry is a laundromat, literally right before you cross this bridge. So from Elmer's, it was a half-mile walk to do laundry. If you camp in this campsite, it's going to be a half a mile to do laundry. So there's options there. All right. Okay, that finishes up leg for me. It was leg 8, and that was really, it was 2.5 days. I got up and had breakfast, and then hiked into Hot Springs and got there before lunch. So I went to we got there so soon we couldn't check in at Elmer's yet. So even though it was raining, we just kind of dumped our packs there and went down and did laundry and got something to eat and came back and checked in. So I mean that was not bad. Somebody's really fast hiker could do that in a pretty decent clip, because you start out at a mile marker about 240. So I mean, Hot Springs is 273, so that's 33 miles. So for most people, that's a 2-day hike. For me, it was 2.5. So that's just because of my own personal limitations with medication that I was on. So, all right, everybody, that's it. I'll throw hopefully a pretty picture here at the end, and I hope you enjoyed this particular leg.